To the Milton City Hall. It's 7 o'clock, and I'm going to call the meeting of the Milton Plan Commission for Tuesday, August 27th, 2019 to order. First item is the roll call.
Farrar,
Here.
Hubbard,
Here.
Paulson,
Here.
Ramsey,
Here.
Slavish,
Here.
and Murray and Furterhert are absent.
Okay, so the next is the approval of the minutes.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor of approving the minutes say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. Now, the next item is to set a public hearing for Milton High School conditional use permit.
Move to schedule a public hearing for Tuesday, September 24th at 7:15 PM.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor of the setting the public hearing for Milton High School conditional use permit for September 24th at 7:15 PM, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. So the next one is sign design review, nice fit alteration 6670 University Avenue, number 101. Who's going to take it? Abby?
Daphne prepared the staff report
Okay.
for this item, and she
All right.
recommended approving the monument sign, but asking for some of the text to be modified so that it would be a consistent size on the facade.
On the facade of the building, not on the sign.
Yes, those ones.
Oh, was it this one in particular that you pointed out the different size text,
Yeah.
how it's kind of crammed in?
Yeah, it's crammed in there.
Yeah, I looked at, it just, it stands out. So I think changing that would make, well, so what are you proposing, Daphne? So,
Oh, I just proposed to maybe make all the letters the same size across. Cramming it in like that doesn't really fit.
yeah, and you have to think that what is more important, nice fit or bridal sewing, right? Probably both.
And
Well,
are they currently all the same size? In
The
its current
current
configuration?
sign just says nice fit alterations.
Yeah.
So then they're adding a new component to their business, and you can see that they just kind of shrunk it so that they could fit it rather than reconfiguring the existing letters.
It needs some alteration, really.
Would that sign be longer or that would be too much space? Or
It's
the-
No.
a multi-tenant building, so it would extend into the other tenant.
Okay, so is candidate people, somebody there from Nice Fit Alterations here? Okay,
Can you
so,
remind me, this is not just painted on, this is like channel letters? So they'd have to move it or resize it, which would be, I'm guessing would be an expense for them, which is why they chose not to do it.
and they probably,
But it really doesn't, we don't want to set a precedent of jamming in extra letters, but this is not, let's just be kind and say this is not a historic or Class A rent building. I mean, it's set back from the University Avenue and I don't,
yeah, and I don't know what, I did look at the cost figures. I think it was $700-800. So I guess I don't know how much money they make. It may be a question of whether they can afford it.
Has this concern been brought up to them?
They would have received the staff comments, but I don't think we made a special phone call or anything. They probably had it emailed to them. Is that right, Daphne? Okay.
So do they need approval now, or you want to talk to them, or what do you want to do, Abby?
I think it's up to the commission whether you're comfortable approving it as proposed, or if you'd like us to work with the applicant to come back with a modification.
All the letters will get smaller if we
yeah.
Yeah,
Just saying, because it looks like the left edge, at least in the image we're looking at, it looks like the end of the sign. I'm not sure if that's true or not.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so,
It's the current. I mean, the only other alternative would be making nice fit smaller as one row and then alterations in bridal sewing. That would provide a nicer fit to the, sorry, too easy.
so I think they probably make most of their money from alterations, not from bridal sewing, right?
Abby, are you aware, do they have a time crunch that they would need this right away?
Did you talk to them at all about that?
I talked to them and they seemed like it didn't seem like a higher priority for them. They could do it whenever.
Okay, so you want
I
to...
think we'd be better off asking staff to
Okay.
work with them, because this
Okay.
doesn't,
Is there more, your motion then?
sure.
Okay, need a
I guess the
second?
motion is to table,
Okay,
or to, yeah, so it can be brought back,
Yeah, to defer it.
or to defer to the next
maybe
meeting,
for it, yeah.
and ask staff to work with them on a consistent font.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further question or comments? All those in favor of the motion to defer it, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion passed unanimously. We are on to item number 4, sign design review, Marriott 1313 John Q. Hemmons Drive. Daphne or Abby or?
Yep, Daphne prepared the staff comments for this one as well, and it's essentially a rebranding, of the Marriott Hotel and Convention Center. The signs that they're proposing are quite similar to the signs that are there now. The only recommendation that we had, was that they come back with a landscaping plan for the base of the monument sign, because we couldn't really tell from the picture what remains of their landscaping there, and so we wanted to see what they could come up with for landscaping the base of the monument sign. Otherwise, we thought it looked really good, and it actually, you can read the text a lot better on the new signs.
Yeah, I think it looks nicer than the other one, so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Move to approve as a minor SCP modification with the condition of the landscaping plan be included for the monument sign base.
Second.
any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor of approving this Marriott sign, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion passes. Item number 5. This is the concept review request for tax incremental finance District 3, assistance to Newcomb mixed-use development 1312 John Q. Hemmons Drive.
Yep, so this is the project that you guys had a lot of support for at the last meeting, and also made a recommendation for concept approval. And I mentioned at the meeting that there would be a TIF request associated with this development. The request is for $1 million in developer financed TIF assistance. This is TIF District 3. And they are building a tray of parking, so not a full parking structure, but just one level above grade. And the cost of that is about $3 million. And so this TIF request would represent 1/3 of the cost of the structured parking. I worked with Bill Burns on this, and we were recommending that 50% of the increment annually be applied to the project. The other 50% would go to the general benefit of TIF 3. And you can see the increment calculations here that Bill put together, and it looks like this would pay back in, we would pay the developer back in 2026, assuming that the construction timetable stays on track. The one thing that we didn't include in this as far as increment goes is any increment associated with the multifamily component, because Brett Newcomb would plan to sell the office component and then likely sell the multifamily site to another developer. But one of the neat things about this project is that the tray of parking could be a shared parking facility that could work for both the residential and the office. So our staff's recommending approval.
Move approval.
Need a second?
Second.
Yeah, the best part is, I have always wanted that we shouldn't be giving 100% of the tips. So in this case, we are giving 50%, so, which is good. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion to the concept review of the request for TIP increment finance District 3 assistance to Newcom mixed-use development, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. Now, our very own Kurt Paulson recommended that we should take item number 7 first, right?
Right, we should do the SIP before we do the final
Yes.
plat.
Yes. So that's exactly what you want to specific implementation, that's what you want to do first, right?
Yeah.
SIP for Conservancy Bend Residences 2413, 2421 Parmenter Street.
So there was quite a bit in the staff comments for this, but there is one additional thing that I wanna, get some plan commission feedback on. And it is, Daphne, if you could pull up the DCI map screen. One of the things that we've talked about quite a bit with the developer and also with our public works staff is this, Penny Klein, our former public lands manager, would have called this a goat path, so.
Called the Desire Path.
Yes, so, a lot of people who are accessing the Creek Corridor Trail use this route instead of the one that's just slightly to the west. And while we're not generally a fan of parallel paths that are intended to serve the same function, we did think that it might be something that the Plan Commission would want to consider in this case, because if you look at the SIP document for Conservancy Bend, they're recommending that some of those townhomes would have a sidewalk that comes out to meet with the existing, or actually to align with a new sidewalk that would be poured. And so one idea we had is for about the same amount of pavement, that goat path could instead be paved, and then the sidewalks coming from the townhomes could come out to meet the newly created sidewalk. So we wanted to get Plan Commission feedback on that, along with the other items mentioned.
Is, that land is owned by the DOT, right?
It is DOT land, but it is under the city's jurisdictional
Okay.
control. And it's, from what I've learned from our public works director, there are some things that, we can authorize within the space, and then there are some that we cannot. Steve probably has a pretty
Yeah.
good
Yep.
understanding of this.
And this we can authorize then.
You
This
can authorize sidewalks, but not landscaping?
landscaping, I think, is okay, but there are a lot of utilities in there, so that's where we couldn't mess with utilities.
I'm actually okay with this. I think people are, they're going to use this in any case, right? So makes a lot of sense.
Which sidewalks are you talking about? The east-west ones coming off the townhouses? Can you show on the SIP
Yes.
plan? Down a few pages. Okay.
So it's like right here.
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
So you can see that they were proposing a walkway, a new north-south walkway, and then some east-west sidewalks to align with that. So basically what we're proposing is to extend that and to kind of align that north-south sidewalk with what people are already using, the goat path.
And the access easement for students walking is in
Yeah.
between the A1 and the T1, T3, right?
Yes, and thanks for bringing that up, because that should also be considered a contingency, and I can't remember if I included that in the staff.
Yeah, it's in there.
recommendation. Oh, it is, okay, good. Yeah, so there's a nice wide sidewalk just to the north of the apartment building, and that would serve for students to cut through.
But why would you encourage them to do that?
Yeah. Lazy high school students, they can walk around.
I
My own
think-
kids included.
Yeah, I think, from what I heard during our staff meeting is they're gonna do it anyway, so let's tell them where they should be. And so that sidewalk is wider and more accommodating, I think, that's just north of the multifamily building. It's kind of hard to see. I'm not sure what the width is. I'm sure that.
20?
Well, that's a 20-foot drive there, right?
Yeah, that's a 20-foot drive.
And it's just to the south of that drive is the actual sidewalk easement.
Yep.
Oh, so it would be a sidewalk, because
No,
my
they're
concern
not
when I
gonna be
first
walking
looked
down.
was that they're gonna be walking through a drive aisle, which is gonna have significantly more traffic than the current office.
Right. So John Hebner can clear up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, only thing is, well, but the students, is, right across from this, is those will be K4. In that-
Yeah, but the students from the high school come to get up north to go to Culver's. They cut through here all the time.
You don't
Or
think they will
Jeffs.
go along the Lee Street?
They don't now. I don't know if anything would change.
So, yeah, we're happy to pave the goat path, and then be able to connect to it. I think that makes it easier for us as well, and we don't need to then request an additional easement, to connect out to the existing sidewalk. And so I think that assists in solving, improving, the current situation. However, on the easement item, I had spoken with our attorney earlier, and his concern with creating an actual easement is that if there is an injury or something that occurs, we are the ones held liable for that. Now, we understand that pedestrian traffic may or may not continue to go through our site, but we would rather be left to take care of that on a case-by-case basis if it truly becomes a problem. But actually placing an easement on something that's already going to be used and is used now places burden on us in the future.
Just to be clear, the easement that staff was talking about is not in the drive aisle, but is like a paved sidewalk immediately north of the A1 building, the
Multifamily, yeah.
multifamily building.
And immediately south of the 20-foot drive aisle.
Yeah.
It's
And
that
so-
sidewalk there.
And so it's
Well, and
a
it-
sidewalk on private property,
But I
but
think
it would be implied that people are gonna walk on it and through it.
And I think our architect was just mentioning that that's actually our ramping and our stair to get up to the courtyard of the building, so that sidewalk doesn't actually continue all the way through. It would, to continue on the sidewalk, you would literally have to follow the ramp or the stairs up and then come back down them.
They're not gonna do that.
No, I don't think that,
So they would end up walking
They're gonna
out
be
into
in
the
the
drive aisle and then back onto the sidewalk if they wanted to,
Was
but
that
it
the-
would.
Yeah, I remember those. Can you bring that closer? That's the elevations.
So there's a ramp here as you come across and then stairs on the sorry. There's a ramp as you come up from the west towards the east, and then there's stairs on the east side of that. So.
Sure.
So that is up here.
So you would be opposed to the easement?
Yeah, I mean, we don't want it to hold up a potential approval, but we would recommend against it just because I think it places potential burden where it doesn't necessarily need to be placed.
I would say just because the high school students are doing it now, you don't want to actually encourage them, or I think they should go along the Lee Street, so. I
Yeah,
think
they-
right now they're doing it because it's open space, there's just no,
It's
nothing
pretty
is there.
vacant.
It's vacant, but I don't think they will do it when there's a development there.
There's a lot of cars in a drive aisle going through there.
Hmm.
I don't think
Yeah.
it's gonna be necessarily all that safe, like you say, with all the cars going through the drive aisle. And I'm not sure that we need to encourage more students to walk through there anyway.
No,
We give them an easement, and then it's gonna encourage more to. I don't, my personal feeling is I don't think it's necessary.
I agree with you, so. What do you think, Michael? You would want, okay, well, all right, so we have a unanimity there, so let's leave that out of here, so.
But with regard to the
Goat path,
goat path on
I think
the
that sounds look good, so.
west, right? We're west here. Yeah, on the west. Is the city responsible for paving that, or is the developer?
No, it
We,
will.
we would,
You would pave it?
Yep.
Yes, yes.
But that doesn't.
And improve it to city standards for a sidewalk,
yeah, it would be
With-
standard
with an
sidewalk.
ADA accessibility and all that.
But the goat path now connects to the path down to the conservancy. On the plan here, this is just connecting the three entrances into the condominiums.
Our conversation has been that we would pave the whole goat path
Way down,
all the way down because
okay. It's just not showing here, is all.
right. So I think if we didn't pave it, I don't know if we would fall into the category of connecting our entrances to a public walkway.
Right.
Because it wouldn't be connecting to the public walkway.
No, it would have to be completed.
Right. So our conversation has been to complete the whole thing.
So the dashed line on this drawing, is that the actual property line? The dark dashed line?
Yes.
So all of this business that's going on just to the west of the development sidewalk, that's all on public land, proposed to be on public land anyways.
Right.
So even if you didn't want a sidewalk, we could put one in anyway.
Right.
And you're proposing to extend that to the north?
I don't
Going now?
think we would end up having that northerly. I guess we haven't had that conversation, but the purpose of that northerly connection was to then connect it to the existing sidewalk there.
That's coming from the south?
Right, but I don't believe we would need that any longer because we would already have the connection to the public sidewalk that would get you both directions, south and west, or south and north.
So people would continue to possibly then just continue the goat path to the north?
Yeah, so they would continue that whole goat path. They would pave that entire thing.
But that's not
And
what
then
he
they would
just
have
said.
4 sidewalks.
I'm talking about the piece to the west. So the piece that's coming, the piece that was shown going towards the roundabout, I thought that was the connection you were referring to. I don't think that would be necessary any longer.
No, the connection I'm talking about is the north-south goat path.
Yep, the whole thing we're paving.
And then you'll have
Okay.
4 sidewalks
Yep.
coming out from the townhomes,
Right.
just connecting just to the goat path.
Correct, yep.
Okay.
I love it that everybody calls it a goat path now. Thank you, Penny.
It makes sense.
Why did she call it a goat path?
We
I
don't
don't
get
get it.
what it counts as, but that's fine.
Exactly what it looks like.
You remember that she had the goats in that Pheasant Branch Conservancy?
Yeah, the goats,
So-
yeah.
Is this area to the west, is that supposed to be functioning as any kind of stormwater facility of any sort? I see on the plan it's called existing dry basin.
Yeah, some of it is, I believe, and I think it was part of the road project, but I don't know the specifics.
So we are not
It's not part of the
counting
road.
it, not at all, but I think water pools there currently just because of the grade. But that's DOT land, and I don't know if when the roundabout was created, if that was ever assumed to be stormwater basin of any kind. It might just be because it's the lowest point there.
So when you go back to the graphic, thank you.
Sorry, I made her change it.
That's fine. I see this, it's just kind of a schematic drawing of where the existing dry basin is, because that's a little different than what I see.
Right, yeah, and
And to actually connect a path, that goat
Through the
path
dry
all the way,
basin.
you're going right through the middle of the dry basin then, right?
right, and so, and that this was conceptual, this was from quite a while ago, I believe on the updated plan that doesn't exist anymore.
Right. But that dry basin, although water pools there, it's not a stormwater facility because it doesn't have an outlet, it doesn't have an inlet, it's just
It's just there.
a depression.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. Clearer now.
Okay, so that's the
the goat path.
sidewalk issue.
Okay, so,
I guess the only other issue is, this has changed since the last SIP we saw, only in the context of subtracting 3 spaces, parking spaces?
actually, I see
Was that it?
one.
Right,
It was-
That's the only change we've seen.
from the last to now,
Is it 1 or 3?
loss of 3 spaces.
And that was due to a change in the entrance to the garage. Where it was previously was too steep, the grade was too steep, so revising the entrance now has improved that grade, made it a little safer.
So you, and that's the structured parking underneath the multifamily.
Correct, yep.
And so total number of units provided is,
87 units
and the total number of stalls,
are 84 at this point.
So how do you plan to handle it?
Well, you know, on one hand, I think based on what we've been seeing at Middleton Center, very similar locations, we feel very comfortable with 84 parking stalls to 87 units. On the other hand, we could gain 2 stalls, but we would have to eliminate the pool that's currently proposed in the courtyard.
there's
Potential-
lifting slides that are
Do you
gonna be
want to
coming out of
frustrate
Middleton
potential
Fa-
renters? I mean,
Oh, you know.
So you know, again, it's one of these items where if the planning commission would like us to gain those 2 stalls, we can. Our property management staff would like to have the pool for marketing purposes. It is a small pool, albeit, but it goes down through the down to the parking garage. So if we removed it, we could gain 2 stalls and get it to 80.
I would-
Presumably, there'd be some tenant who would either have to park in the surface lot, or you could incentivize them with reduced rent by not having, I mean, the goal of putting an apartment near a job center and bus line is someone could live there without a car anyway,
Right, right.
but I know lenders are willing to go reduce parking, but I've never seen a lender have, do on a project where you have fewer stalls than units.
If I'm being honest, in the conversations I've had with lenders, which is pretty frequent, parking isn't one of the items that's typically raised as a concern. And I think the other piece that Terrence always reiterates is it's kind of our, not a gamble, but we obviously want to have a marketable property with enough parking, but on the other hand, we do want to hit that sweet spot. So, I mean, here it is, it's close to a 1-to-1. If it was further off, I could see some potential concern, but the 3 stalls, based on what we're seeing here at Middleton Center, we're pretty comfortable with it.
But your total parking stalls are 131 or 130, I suppose, right?
And yeah, that includes the surface level that can be used by the multifamily tenants as well.
So then
That's all visitor.
That really isn't a problem.
I'm
so,
fine.
Yeah, so we do have quite a bit of extra availability.
You could take out those lift and slides from Center 1 and bring in.
Now we're talking.
Yeah, so there's a way to accommodate it then. So since you have 84 plus 16, 46 other parking stalls, or are those for townhomes, or what is?
Some of them are designated for the townhomes, but only the stalls that are directly outside of the garages for the townhomes. All of the stalls that are in the center of the site are for shared use.
But also you have 19 townhomes and you have 46 stalls, so I think, yeah, I feel okay, so I don't think there's a big issue here then. Is that how you feel, Abby?
Yep. One of the ideas that John sent over was that TUL would be willing to lease 3 parking stalls in the parking lot that the city owns on the corner of Clark Street and Lee Street.
Mm-hmm.
We lease that to the school district for their use, so I don't know if asking that question would be opening a can of worms, and I know the school district is trying to add a lot more parking to the east, so I'm not sure if they would want to encumber it, but that is one idea that we could consider if you guys are interested.
Okay, so I see that there are 19 townhomes and there's a 35 efficiency units. So 35 plus 44, 54, so it's not 1-to-1 then, right?
So it's over a 1-to-1
It will be all
as far per unit or on a per bedroom
per
basis?
unit. No, per unit.
How many smart parking stalls do we have?
You
So we have
130.
130, and we have, yeah, it's over a 1-to-1.
For the total development site.
Right, for the total site. Well over.
Okay.
And on the comment on potentially leasing some stalls, I know right now that parking lot sits quite vacant. But, you know, if we were to lease them, I think we would want to do it if we deemed there to be an issue versus leasing them now, considering, again, not to bring up Middleton Center again, but considering the vacancy that we're seeing at Middleton Center, I wouldn't want to then already lease 3 additional stalls prior to needing them.
Is there street parking along the west side of Clark Street?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, there's a lots of,
There's almost never anybody parked there.
yeah.
There's actually parking on both sides, right?
And on Lee as well.
I mean, that may be removed with the school district reconfiguring that travel lane.
Well, they're adding more parking spaces there.
Yeah.
Okay,
I guess the only other issue is, have we approved the architecture yet, or have we?
no, I
That's
don't.
part of the SIP.
That's part of the SIP.
Okay, so let's move on to this next thing then. Yes, Abby?
No, I was gonna ask the architect if you wanted to walk us through the program here on the architecture. But you need a mic.
Here, you want this one? All right.
Thanks. All right. So throughout this whole process, the architecture really has not changed dramatically. We've refined it, refined some colors and materials as well. And we've got some images here to go through. So, as has been presented all along, it's a traditional aesthetic in both the apartment buildings and the townhome buildings. Pitched roofs, gables, bays, traditional detailing in the windows, high quality materials. We have the orangish, it's a little orange in these renderings, but there's the actual brick. So the orangish colors here are all masonry brick. The base is all masonry throughout. And then there's a couple colors of fiber cement siding on the larger building. And then on the townhomes, the same aesthetic to relate to that building, but just at a smaller scale. Same materials, same color palette, just used a little bit differently, but with the same traditional detailing of the gable masses, balconies, bays, covered entries at the ground floor as well. So I don't know if these
Can you show
are
us the west elevation of the apartment building? Which one's the west elevation? Along
along Parmenter.
Parameter,
This one. So this is the Parmenter side, and this faces the other property. So Lee Street would be this way. So this is a corner looking towards the townhomes in the background in that corner. This is the drive entry through the townhomes on the left and the larger building on the right. This is purely the interior area that's shielded from the public right of way. And then these are townhome images. Again, this is on Parmenter looking at the townhomes, that would be along Parmenter. We're proposing to have the opportunity on those units along Parmenter for some sort of live-work units. There's, on each of these units on the ground floor, there's a small room where somebody could have a home office or some sort of insurance agent or something. So we'd like the opportunity just on those units to have that ability. So we're showing some signage areas there. But that's
That
looking.
image-
I'm sorry?
That image isn't in the package.
It's not.
Can you bring it?
Yep.
Sorry.
Absolutely.
Oh, so those would be like entrances for the live-work units.
Correct.
It's here, right?
And this
We
is-
we just like to have that opportunity to keep that open. It's not necessarily going to be
This
that.
image is along Parmenter.
That image is along Clark.
Oh, okay.
So this is facing the Conservancy.
Because from afar, it looked like, almost like carports, but that's the front. That would be like a little entrance
Correct. Covered canopies.
vestibule.
I'll bring it over here for you guys. This is what they're talking about.
So that's facing Parmenter, John?
Correct. Yeah.
That's where the sidewalks would
Yes,
come out
that's-
and meet with the goat.
That's correct.
Yep, absolutely. And then this is Clark Street. This faces the Conservancy. Good? Okay.
You didn't want to tap into the color aesthetic of Paul's Barn Grill?
Terrence didn't. We really wanted to.
You know, you say that in jest, but
I
I was
say that in
thinking of the high school.
Yeah.
I was thinking of the, whatever is that building. the
Cardinal
Goose-
Row, the new one, the red one? Yep.
Well,
No.
that, but then the one north, across the creek corridor,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Dusler's.
Yeah,
Dusler.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, it's very beautiful, don't get me wrong. I was just looking at context in a larger
That's sort of,
context, if you will.
well, but that's the office building, that's a different architecture.
Yeah,
so-
oh, absolutely, completely different art.
I like the pitched roof. It looks more residential.
Yep.
It's
Yep,
got a
yep.
nice look. I'm happy to see that because so many that we see now,
Or
it's all
flat.
the flat roof.
Right.
Put it off. So I'm
Yeah.
pleased to see this.
Yeah, looks nice.
Good, thank you. That was driven by
Okay.
our client. He really
So
wanted the
what's
traditional
next,
feel.
Abby? So what more do we need
Well,
to?
our staff recommendation for the SIP was for approval with, following contingencies.
Like,
Paving the goat path,
mm-hmm.
that should be added, and then the list that was included in the packet. Resolution of staff comments, developer, let's see. Oh, the developer will need to demonstrate that private utilities within a public easement are satisfactory to the engineering staff and enter into an easement encroachment agreement acceptable to the city. We've had 2 meetings about this with
Yeah,
Public Works
yeah.
staff over the last couple of weeks, and as of this afternoon, I think we have it pretty well worked out. The
That's
width
good.
of the easement, I think that third bullet point there has now been satisfied. And then you guys did not support the pedestrian access easement, so that contingency would be removed.
And the compliance with the 3 recommended actions from the endangered resources.
Yes, thank you. Yep.
Yeah, they
And
got.
a lighting plan, it looks like.
Yes.
And the landscape plan has been submitted and approved?
I haven't seen that,
I
right?
don't think so.
So I think you'd need
So you
approval of
are
a
bringing
lands.
the,
Lighting and the landscape.
The lighting and landscape plans still need to be approved. I'm channeling my inner David Reed and asking for the landscape plan.
Both of those items should be in the submittal.
See, I did see some.
There's there's utility plan.
Yeah, it says it's appendix B, the SIP civil plans and
I mean, if we haven't seen them, but if staff,
you guys have seen it, right?
do we have to see them or can we give staff?
Yep, we could do that.
Approval authority on the lighting and landscape plan.
Yeah, I wonder, I know I saw them during their last submittal, but what I don't remember is if they were included in this submittal, or maybe they somehow got left out of
Okay, so let's
Grading
get,
and erosion plan, utility.
the, here really quick, if you'll just bear with us.
Yep.
But we don't want it to be held
Appendix
up on
B and
a,
Appendix E there.
we don't want to be held up on a lighting or a landscape plan. So we can just,
We can
staff, the
approve it,
approval authority.
subject to staff.
Right
Staff.
there.
see
So
that.
I'll move approval
Okay,
based on all of the contingencies that Abby's outlined, and as well as the lighting and the landscape plan.
okay, Neeraj, okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all those,
just for the record, and to make sure that the developer understands that approval of the SIP does not convey approval of the requested temporary limited easements, which, so all the staff conditions in our packet.
okay. With all those conditions and the way the motion is made, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Now on to
So
item number,
when would you start site clearance and construction? This,
October
So hopefully this fall.
Okay.
We actually just, hey, I mean, on cue, right? Demolition, so.
you can tell he's ready now. so-
On Tuesday, actually, we had our environmental consultant at both the Pines Building and I forget the gentleman's last name, the other building, the two buildings that are out there. So they did their hazardous materials assessment inspection and did some, so they are in process of that already, which is great because there are DNR requirements for notifying them as to when the abatements are going to occur for lead and asbestos. So we were happy to be able to get in there and get that process underway. So yeah, we are beginning to engage lenders right now. We already have 2 contractors working on preliminary bids. The architect has been working on our construction documents for over 3 weeks now. So we're pushing right along.
Moving forward, that's good.
So thank you.
Any more questions before we move on to item number 6? Okay, final plat review for Conservancy Bend Residences, 2413 and 2421 Parmenter Street.
And we got a revised version of the final plat this afternoon. I printed it for everybody. You should have it in front of you.
Yep.
We need to add one contingency to our recommendation, and that is that Public Works Committee approval of the final plat is also required.
Okay,
move to approve the final plat, subject to all of the contingencies of the SIP, resolution of staff comments, and approval by Public Works.
But you don't want the last one, right?
With, and excluding the pedestrian access easement.
okay.
Catch.
Okay, you have any further comments, Abby or Daphne, or anyone else has any questions or comments? Michael?
I've spent too much time talking about these utility easements over the last couple of
Utility
weeks with
easements.
Public Works that I think we should just.
Okay, the motion is the final plat review for Conservancy Bend Residences, 2413 and 2421 Parmenter Street. With all these conditions here. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. All right. we
It's
are-
Terrence Wall night, isn't it? Huh?
3/4 of the agenda.
Well, what?
It's Terrence Wall night every night at the Middleton
Oh.
Plan Commission.
Okay, we are on to item number 8. This is the specific implementation plan for Milton Center Phase 3, Milton Center 3 LLC. See the staff report dated 8/22/19.
The update, nothing has changed since the last meeting. So as you'll recall, at the last meeting, there was a long discussion about the proposal for at-grade under building parking and the concern over what that would look like in the storefront windows. There were 4 members present at the last meeting, and the vote, the recommendation to approve failed on a 2-2 vote.
Stay there.
So
I was
we're-
just
we're-
asking her to stay on the elevation. Here we go.
We basically are bringing this back with the same staff recommendation that we had last time, which was for SIP approval contingent on resolution of engineering staff recommendations, adoption of the amended and restated parking management plan, and the addition of an art element inside the windows of the first floor parking structure that would provide visual interest to a pedestrian walking by. And maybe that could be like something that the Public Arts Committee could review if you like the idea of adding the art element.
Okay, so you will be quite happy with this then?
That's, yeah,
That was
that's
on the
the
table
same
last
staff
time too, right?
recommendation
Yeah.
that we had last.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just for the record, since I wasn't here last time, I did watch the tape to review the whole discussion, so we're not gonna make the architect go through the whole discussion again. But I guess the question I would have asked is, on the elevation that we're looking at now on the screen,
Yes.
which is the F building, the longer building.
Yep.
What we'll call the long building. Can you show for each of these kind of segments, which would be parking and which would be, I
Absolutely.
guess, other facades?
Retail or lobby.
You may have to bring it
I guess the other
closer.
question is, when it is parking and a glass, would you be able to see the?
Cars?
You have a visual representation?
Yeah, so I brought some images of a project that had the same sort of condition in Wauwatosa, which is a suburb of Milwaukee. And our opinion, it's a unique condition and a interesting condition. Yeah, you can pass those around, I guess.
I mean,
You can see into the space. You can see the cars. There's some depth to the space. We think it's an appealing experience as you're walking by. But so look at those. There's from various angles and distances away from the building. So you can see some reflection of the cars of the exterior of the building. Now that's clear glass too. And when you get closer, depending on your angle, you can see into the space and you can see the cars that are parked in there. But on this elevation specifically, I'm gonna bring it up, point it out on here because you will not be able to see. So that's this elevation, although,
is that the right elevation? This is the one that faces Terrace Avenue?
yep, correct. So the,
Joe, it might be easier to go over to the screen and just.
Yeah,
Use the
yes.
mouse.
Go
is that okay?
Definitely.
I didn't know that was allowed.
And this is on the north side of Terrace
Drive
Avenue.
for a bit.
That's excellent. Okay, so here we go. Is the mouse showing up on your screen?
Yep.
Okay, so these greenish elements, so these 4 windows here, 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 and here, those look into the parking. And under this, for lack of a better term, yellowish, these 3 window bays. The rest are, either stair towers or look into the residential lobby or look into under the red area, the reddish brick area, the retail space. So that's on that elevation. And then on the other building, I don't know if you can.
Building G?
The other building is even less. I think it's just one window bay.
Okay, so you have that
Wait,
parking
he's-
sign, so whether,
He's gonna do Building G, the
Okay.
west.
Yep.
Shorter building.
It's just this,
Because it's on the north side of Terrace Avenue, so this is the south elevation of the building.
correct.
The green.
John, is it this one or the other one? This one? Yeah, that one. There's only one right here.
so that's a parking?
That's parking, and the rest are, again, into either occupied space or stair towers, stuff like
So
that.
that green is only on 2, so you have only 2 parking there then?
Say that again?
You have only 2 stalls, there are 2 which is showing green on the top. So those are the only 2 parking places, or there are
Correct.
more of them?
On the west building.
Yep. So if you look at, can we switch to the floor plan?
Floor plan.
Yeah.
See, there's that parking.
Yeah, yeah. So the floor
That's-
plan of
that's
the,
the-
this is the bigger building,
Yep. That's the east building.
F building,
Lower
you
lower
can-
level.
the big building.
Go to the next level.
Yeah, it's the lower
Next
level.
one.
Yeah, we're on the lower level, sorry. There we go.
Okay, I see it now.
Yeah,
The
so
red,
that's,
and that's the green.
So on this
we're
one,
talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11 stalls, really, approximately.
yep. I didn't count them, but if you just did there, I believe you. Yeah.
So Joe, is that, and maybe this is a question for you, John, but is that, would that space then in the evenings at night be lit 24/7? Is that the intent?
Yeah, it would be lit, it would be temperature controlled, and it would be secured by the garage door, which will be accessed via a fob, and then during the day, the garage door I would imagine will open in the same manner that the garage door at Middleton Center 1 opens for the temporary use of customers.
So you
I mean,
said, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I have a lot of sympathy and appreciation for what Commissioner Murray was talking about last week. Because normally in a downtown environment, you wouldn't want a glass enclosure on parking. Right, you'd want something to activate the street. But this is really facing Terrace Avenue, which is a few kind of low-density houses that are set back pretty far from the street. So it's
Right.
interesting because it's a transition area. It's not really, it's the edge of the downtown, but it's,
It's a transition area, and
today. I'm not trying to offend Terrace Avenue, but it's
Right.
Terrace Avenue. It's not spectacular. It's,
and, you know, the market for additional retail on that road is questionable, I guess.
yeah, there's none.
And, you know, to put units on that, you know, there's not a lot of space between the property line and the curb, and it wouldn't be the greatest place for residential units. I mean, I guess we could do it. But like I said, it's a unique condition. It's probably not something you want to do on every project, but I think in a unique situation like this, it's a pretty good solution, and I think it's an interesting, maybe not to everybody, but I think it's an interesting experience when you walk by and you can look in there and see that.
Well, I see the way the retail is changing. You know, I think the Amazon is eating everybody's lunch. Would we be able to rent this here? So,
If you don't need those stalls in 10 years, would there be a possibility of retrofitting that space for something, or there's basically no entrance into it?
There would be a possibility of, and I don't want to speak to whether they'd want to do it or not, but it would be possible to create spaces of the parking stalls themselves, so labeled in this diagram 2 through 6, and then 2017 through 22. But we'd still need that parking that drive aisle access down. That would still need to be maintained.
And there is street parking along Terrace, which is not
Correct.
usually used at all.
so, but these could be converted into, let's say, you know, at some stage to co-working spaces. Let's say if you don't need that parking at some stage.
Well, again, it's kind of
It-
Joe. I think sure a demising wall could be put up.
Yeah.
You know, from space 21 to 17 to encompass 21 through 21, 12, 13, 20. You know, all the way to 16 and 17. Sure, I think that could be a possibility. However, you know, we also have to account for turning radiuses for the
Yeah.
vehicles when they get underneath the building, which, you know, if you're thinking about a half circle, the way a vehicle turns, that can create a pretty wonky looking commercial space. And then you're talking about, you know, what size are you really working with there? And Joe's laughing because we had this conversation last week, and you know, you end up with either a very strangely shaped space or a space that's very thin, and not. And again, you know, we're talking about Terrace Avenue, so you already talk about potential difficulty in renting that space, and then you hit them with a strange envelope as well. Then it makes it even more difficult. So to say that it could potentially be done, yeah, sure, it could be. But we would strongly prefer to not do that at this point.
Oh, no, I don't think I was thinking at this point. I was thinking out into the future.
Yeah, it's not impossible.
No, I think the biggest concern was if you had parking spaces, and I think it looks like you do, and the other was, you know, that building was very large, and you have improved it
Yeah.
to somehow look that by colors and various options that it doesn't look that big. So I think two big objections, which I had and the others had, those you have addressed. So
Thanks, Mayor.
okay, so any other questions? It looks like Kurt is ready to make a motion.
The parking management plan referred to here is the one that is the kind of revised master parking management plan for all three phases.
Yes.
And it's on our agenda just because we're approving the same thing 3 times. We just have to, for the
For
record.
each phase, yeah.
So the revised version reflects kind of the compromise solution that John and I came up with, that I think it seemed like the Plan Commission was pretty much on board for. But we need to incorporate that as an SIP modification into all 3 phases, because otherwise the other phases are stuck with the old version of the plan, which is not being adhered to.
And there's separate SIPs for each one, so it has to be.
So I guess I asked this last time. What we're finding is that we have more parking than we need in phase 1 and 2.
Looks like it. Right now, that's how it looks like it. so.
And the important issue Abby raised about not having signage for particular users, but letting the shared parking kind of do the work that it was supposed to.
But we're not fully utilizing the parking in phase
1.
and 2 as outlined in the present SIP.
Yeah.
Well, right, like the current SIP, the parking management plan that was approved previously by the Plan Commission is not
Being
the way that
done, I
it's
mean, yeah, the whole
operating
slide
now.
and lift and slide and all that stuff is
Right.
not happening, not functional,
And the
whatever.
community car
Yeah,
spaces.
right. the community
Although
car
the
thing.
developer is working on getting 2 community cars, but that's not incorporated into the revised plan because it's still in negotiations with Xerology right now. But I think the goal of the revised plan is that it, A, reflects what's being done now, B, gets rid of some of the signage that is kind of negating the shared parking arrangement, and then C, would remove the bottom trays from the lift and slide so that they can function better for larger vehicles. But keep the upper lifts in case the developer decides that they want to get them back up and running.
Yeah, so right now I went there at various times. I've checked a few times, a lot of empty spaces. Phase 2 is sitting all empty, and phase 1 had a lot of open spaces too, so. And I also checked the parking lots along the Terrace Avenue, that I was wondering where are they parking? So there were some parking there. I don't know what the number was, 11, 12 of them, so.
I did see that one of those parking lots, it said for Hellbox Coffee on Terrace Avenue, which I thought was strange.
Really?
There are a lot
At least
of
when I drove by
cars
today, so.
parking in the terrace lot now, but
But
that will go
that'll be
away.
gone, yeah.
They'll be forced to move to phase 2 or phase 1.
Yeah, so there are
That's
30,
interesting.
30 spaces along the terrace, which will be lost, which will be gone, so.
So you mentioned that the vehicle had a Hellbox signage or on
No,
it?
there was a temporary, it looked like it was a placard or a sign that was just kind of almost wedged against a tree saying parking for Hellbox Coffee
Public space, right?
on Terrace Avenue. I'm guessing that may
Interesting.
not be there tomorrow. given your note. At least that's what I thought I saw.
Okay, okay.
Oh, Kurt is very observant.
I won't quote you.
Well, other questions, comments? Well, otherwise we need a motion, so.
I would move to recommend SIP approval for Middleton Center Phase 3, subject to the resolution of engineering and planning staff comments, adoption of the amended parking management plan, and addition of an art element inside the window of the first floor parking structure that can provide interest to the pedestrian walking by, but still allow visibility into and out of the parking structure. Were there any other conditions?
No.
Okay, so seconded. Dan did,
Dan?
so.
Dan.
Okay, so now I just have one more. Any more questions for John or anyone else? So you said the parking stall, they would be lighted 24/7? So I wonder if the people living across from there, they would have any objections to it? I mean, so when you park the car, there will be light, but once you stop parking, the light will go off, right?
Yeah, so we do work with Focus on Energy to incorporate motion censored lighting. And so after a period of 5 to 10 minutes, those lights will turn off. So as soon as you walk into the space or enter the space, the lights turn on for security purposes. But what's great is if there's no motion down there between 10 and 4 a.m.,
Okay.
they'll be off. And there will be some very dim security lighting down there.
And
But
you have a lighting plan,
yes,
and we have in our ordinance the light
Spill.
spillage,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if you want, we can add another condition that
That's a
That-
very good idea.
that the light spillage, I guess as a performance standard would not exceed that.
It's
Do we have it in our ordinance?
0 foot candles
0 candle
At-
feet at the
that are
property,
going across
Line,
the
right.
property line, yeah.
or, yeah.
And I
Right.
appreciate your bringing this up because one thing I didn't mention is we did get a call. I talked with John about this as well a couple weeks ago from one of the property owners across the street. And his recollection was that there was going to be no outdoor lighting at all on Phase 3. And so Daphne got to go through our whole file and research everything, and that was never a contingency for approval previously. We even called Eileen because the property owner thought that maybe she would remember the conversation that they had had about it, and she didn't remember that being a condition either. So I did let the gentleman know that we researched the files and we didn't find anything that limited or restricted the lighting beyond our normal lighting ordinance.
And is there a lighting plan on this SIP?
there should be, yes.
Okay, so you have it here. But I guess the concern the mayor's raising is not just the kind of exterior lights on the building, but interior lights of the parking garage that might shine out, so.
Yeah, the other piece of that would be the headlights, so the base wall, how high that is, Joe? Is that high enough to, I mean, when people are pulling into their stalls there, that
Yeah,
you're not gonna see those headlights across the
Yeah.
street?
I think those issues should be addressed, so.
so let's make that part of the condition is, subject to the condition that the light from the parking garages conforms to the city ordinance, and that the developer install
Well, we can,
something to block.
a
the
light
light.
block at the elevation of
Yeah,
a
just
headlight.
that it's
Yeah.
high enough to.
That there be a light block high enough to block
SUV headlights.
headlights from the neighboring property.
Yeah, otherwise, if you're living across, boy, it would be not good, so. Okay, any other questions or comments? I think this
Well,
was.
does Dan accept that as a friendly amendment? Okay.
You should be able to block some of the light by using different kind of glass, shouldn't you?
Well, I was going to mention the public art. I mean, depending on what we put in there, if it's a cool laser etched metal piece, I mean that'll significantly help to block any lighting from coming through those windows.
Yeah, the bottom, however many inches, can be designed to be
Yeah.
solid or opaque, and then as
Oh yeah, sure.
it goes up, it can be
Would it
more
protect the
transparent.
city's interest better if we made a kind of performance condition that the city could require additional measures if there is complaints from the neighbors about headlights?
I don't think I'd be opposed to it, though it does sound fairly general, and I don't know what the potential costs of those could
Right.
be. But the other piece is, I know that in earlier conversations we had talked about, wanting the glass to remain clear. So if the city is then saying that they would like us to increase the opacity.
Yeah,
Tintedness?
Of the, yes, the tint at the
less
bottom
opacity.
portion, right, then I think we would be happy to do that, but I think we'd like to probably do it, can that be applied after installation? I'm sure it can, it's just
Yeah.
like tinting windows, but,
yeah, we could do that, or it could be part of that art element that's inside.
Sure.
I can visualize something that the bottom 3 feet is opaque, and then as it goes up, it's more transparent or translucent.
I think it's in your interests that you don't have too many complaints, because light is something which people would not like
And
in the middle of the night.
I'll make it just clear for the record that we intend that staff can approve that at the staff
Okay.
level. We don't need to.
Okay. That's all right.
The lighting.
Okay. Okay, any other questions or comments? So this is the final approval here, so. Okay, the motion is, as you heard, the SIP specific implementation plan for Milton Center Phase 3, Milton Center 3 LLC. All those in favor of the motion as stated earlier, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Yep.
So the motion passes 4-1.
Thank you.
thanks.
All right. You still got 2 more items here, folks.
Yeah.
Okay. Item number 9. This is the specific implementation plan modification for Milton Center Phase 1 to incorporate parking management plan changes. Milton Center 1 LLC.
Move to approve as a minor SIP modification.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. We got a lot of parking there, so not a problem.
Park.
Item number, as of now, I hope that you have told me that 90% of that's occupied. So it's,
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I mean, our case wouldn't be as strong if it weren't. So, yeah, I think it's above 95% occupied now, phase 1, and it
Okay.
still has all of that vacancy, so that strengthens our point on that.
okay. Because I counted the cars in the Terrace Avenue, I counted in the parking lot, and even after counting that, there was plenty of space, so. Okay, all right. This is the specific implementation plan modification for Middleton Center Phase 2 to incorporate parking management plan changes. Middleton Center 2 LLC.
Move approval.
Second.
Any questions or comments? They even got 46 slots on and the other day when I went there, just 3 spaces taken, so. So all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So motion adjourned.
So moved.
Okay, we are adjourned. Okay.